Yes, we can.
Warm welcome to all of you.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Let's start. So maybe people may join in some more time. Good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you. And I hope you all must have had good tea and coffee, because no meeting goes without a tea and coffee. So I hope you all had a good tea. Thank you so much for joining. My dear brothers, so let me just give you a brief insight about today's program. This program is going to be a 90-minute session. To start with, we'll have a small introduction about the objective of today's session, followed by the presentation on exploring the mechanical industry by our technical expert, then question and answer session, and then we conclude. To start with the objective of the seminar, of this webinar, there's a saying, no tech without a mech, no technology without mechanical. I don't say this, but this is what experts tell us. So let's get to understand the objective of this session from our industry experts who have a very vast and rich industrial experience. I welcome Mr. Shahnawaz Khan Saab. A brief introduction about Mr. Khan Saab. He is a serial entrepreneur with 37 years of experience in the industry. Experience in design, development of electronics and mechanical systems and products for defense, aerospace, industrial automation, smart cities, medical devices. He's also experienced in handling large teams and projects. He has worked in reputed firms such as Wipro, Tata Elxsi, Gulf Tech, etc. He did his master's from IIT Kharagpur. He's also founder managing director of Fanambolo Technologies Private Limited, Bangalore. He's an entrepreneur, educationist, and a philanthropist. I welcome you, sir. It's an honor to have you here. May I request Mr. Khan Saab to take over and present. Thank you.
Thank you, Siraj bhai, for such a welcome and an introduction. It is a really I consider it my privilege to join this group today to talk about the platform that we are going to provide, the MFIRD platform. So we will have a small introduction session. And then we will talk about what we can do by joining this MFIRD platform. Let me just give an introduction to MFIRD. So even though I am an electronics engineer by profession, but my heart is always attracted towards mechanical engineering. Even though we work on electronics, and then except for the software engineers who are just going to write programs, but the end result from the electronics thing is it's a mechanical system. Except for the display, which is just going to show something, all other things are going to be mechanical systems. Whether it is a printer, if it is an industry, it is controlling some CNC machines, or opening a wall, or switching on something, or controlling some other thing. Everything is a mechanical system. So when we were joining when we were doing our engineering in 1970s, that was called as Royal Branch. Mechanical was considered as a Royal Branch, because that is the one which is tangible, and then people will touch and then see their effects and other things. So that is the reason why my heart is very near to mechanical engineering, and in product design and so many other things. I get very much involved in that, and then I like that industry. So I am given the task of introducing MFIRD. Before introducing MFIRD, I thought, let us see why we need such a platform today. So as we can see, last 2-3 decades have seen so much of technological advances especially in engineering, which was not seen earlier. Any technical advantage, advances that has taken place, like the disruption that was caused due to the technology, used to last for nearly 60 to 70 years or even 1 century. So people had a lot of time to get adapted to that and then change themselves. But in the last 10 to 20 years, the technology is changing so fast that we don't have time to, adopt it. I mean, we don't have much of time to adapt to that. We have to be very fast to, to catch up with the technology. Otherwise, we become irrelevant in the industry. So I thought, let me talk about some 3-4 disruptions which have caused the industry and then which has put a lot of pressure on professionals like us, engineering professionals like us. One is automation and digital advances that have taken place. So this has led to replacement of employees who are, low-level skills and then mid-level
Khan
skills.
Sahab, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Are you sharing your screen or something?
Yes, you are not seeing the screen?
No, we are not able to see your screen.
Just one second. Let me just see that. Just give me that.
Yes, we are able to see it now.
Yeah, just 1 second. Let me just. Is it okay now?
Yes, Khan Sahab.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. As you can see, the automation and digital advances have necessitated the replacement of low skill and then middle skill level people to people who have got very good analytical and technical and managerial skills. That has become the norm today. So industry doesn't need low level skill people today because there is a lot of advances that have taken place. Earlier, when we used to work in 80s, if you go to a manufacturing setup where you had lathes and the milling machines and then bending machines and then cutting machines, other things, the people used to be low-level workers and then who has to, operate the lathe and then operate the milling machine and other things, with their hands. But now those all got replaced by high-end machines like CNC lathes and then CNC bending machines and then milling machines and other things. So what we need is we need people, even though they operate those machines, but they should have analytical skills and then they should have technical skills. And they also need some level of managerial skills also, so that, they can schedule it properly and other things. So this is one disruption which has caused because of the automation and digital advances. The second thing is, in India, having a large population and then large workforce, we had an advantage, competitive advantage, saying that we have large pool of low skill, low wage workers, so we can offer you products which are price competitive. But today that has changed because all machines have low level skill work is converted by automation into a automated process. So what has happened is now we don't need those low skill work people. So because of that, the competitive advantage that we had is lost because of the automation. So we need to upgrade our low skill workers to operate these machines. This is one disruption which has caused because of the technology advances. And another thing is we have got in the last one decade artificial intelligence, advanced robotics, and then cyber physical systems. So this has led to industry 4.0 and then agile manufacturing. So today, we cannot talk that, I am going to produce a model of the car on the, assembly line. Today, the industry is geared in such a way that, you can have any model of the car at any time on the, assembly line. So this is what has changed. It has led to agile manufacturing because of so many other technical advances that have taken place in the mechanical as well as other industry. So there is a need for, to understand these things and then gear up for this change. And the other thing that has become now very important is the innovation ecosystem. So now the earlier things like, the knowledge, R&D, and then the innovation that you do was, is intangible, and then there was no value for that earlier. But today, now these are the things which decide the value of a company and value of an individual. So these have become the drivers of economic growth today. And then by having this knowledge, R&D, and then patents with you, you have to diffuse those technologies to the industry so that they will be useful for the common man. At the same time, by diffusing these technologies to the industry, you can earn a lot of money. You can earn a lot of money. So these are some deceptions which have caused in the industry due to technology advances. So for which we need to gear up. We need to gear up. So there is a lot of need that we need to upskill ourselves, and then we should get ready for this. Typically, these are not offered in the colleges. Today, the curriculum that is being offered in the colleges is an old curriculum, which is not geared for these new changes. So the people who come out of the colleges and even the people who are there in the industry who have just joined now, they need to upgrade themselves, upskill themselves to meet these challenges. So some of the growth areas that you need to, which are in demand today, and then which you are going to see in next few years, is one thing. These are all the challenges for mechanical engineers, and then at the same time, these are the opportunities for mechanical engineers. One is we are going from the internal combustion engines to electrical vehicles today. So the electrical vehicles are posing a lot of new challenges, especially regarding the torque, energy loss, and then the weight and other things of the systems, so that it will be more economical and then more efficient. So there is a need for people to design mechatronics and other systems which will support these electrical systems. So one need to understand this, and then one need to have a lot of analytical skills and design skills to come out with these solutions. Other thing that is becoming very important these days is nano engineering, especially development of composite materials and renewable energy storage systems. This is one thing which is becoming a very hot subject today. That especially phase-changing materials which are there, which will store the energy and then release it at a later time. This is becoming a very hot topic today. And then the other thing is the medical devices. So this is the area, nano engineering area, where people are working, and then you can see a lot of opportunities which are coming up, and then you need to be prepared for this. Otherwise, you will lose out. The third thing is the biomechatronics, especially design of mechanical sensors, which are nano sensors, which are very small MEMS devices, and controllers and actuators, which are they are micro actuators and then controllers with good torque and then energy. These are very much required today in developing these medical implants and then prosthetics systems. These are becoming very hot subject today, and then with the advent of this 3D printing, and then especially nano engineering, people are coming out with a lot of biomechatronics systems. And fourth thing is the industry 4.0, where industrial IoT is there and agile manufacturing is there. Other things are there. We need to gear up to meet this requirement. So with this as a background, there is a need to have a platform which enables professionals in industry to network and then learn these things by networking with each other, and then be relevant to the technology changes and advances that are taking place, so that you don't get left out in the industry. You will not lose job, and then you need to again reskill yourself. So if you have a job today, and then you upskill yourself to be ready for these advances, and then if you come out of the college afresh, and then you train yourself to be ready for the industry. So we thought, there is a need for creating a platform for people to network. So our vision, especially MFIRD vision, is to provide a common platform for like-minded professionals across the industries. So today, you cannot be in your own shell. You cannot say I'm only an electrical engineer, I'm only a mechanical engineer, I'm only an electronics engineer. We need to interact with each other so that we can come out with good products in the industry. So to share, network, and coordinate and cooperate, and help them achieve excellence in their respective fields and build culture of giving back to the society. We have learned something at the expense of the society. We need to give it back to the society. Giving back to the society need not be only in terms of giving money or doing some charity or something like that, but getting the people, bootstrapping the people to come up to the present level. That also we can do. So our mission is we aim to achieve our vision by creating a conducive platform which will address the following areas. One is, we call it pillars. One is upskilling. Second is career guidance. Third is entrepreneurship, and then fourth is education. These are the 4 pillars we have identified through which we feel that we can achieve our vision. So what we can do in upskilling. So what we are planning to do is there are some 4 groups which we have formed in MFIRD for all these 4 pillars. And in the upskilling, we arrange expert talks on new emerging technologies that are going to take industry western. We have conducted a number of talks on this emerging technologies. So you can get involved in this, and then you can learn the new technologies which are coming up in the industry. And then we create the awareness about government upskilling initiatives and platforms. So Government of India has come out with a lot of upskilling initiatives and platforms. So we will create awareness of this. People can go and then upskill themselves by subscribing to these platforms and then learning from that. And then we would like to create a platform that encourages professionals working in multinational firms. See, multinational firms today, because they need to keep pace with the technological advances, what they do is they invest a lot of money in retraining their employee force. So these people who are working in multinational firms, they are lucky few, who get exposed to these new technologies as the technology is emerging. So what they need to do is we would like to encourage those professionals who are lucky to get exposed to the new technologies, to spare some time, the quality time, to retrain, upskill members from other companies. There are a lot of small companies which cannot afford to retrain their employees. So these people who are working in multinational firms, they can take out some quality time and then upskill the other people from the other companies. So we would like to create a platform for this. We can form core technology groups in various cities. It is not only for Bangalore, it is throughout India. We can form various cities, and they can provide training to underprivileged folks, like what I said, the people from other small companies, through contact or online programs. We can do both. And in entrepreneurship, we would like to arrange motivational talks on entrepreneurial journey, build a platform that brings together entrepreneur and then a mentor, and make people aware of various avenues that support entrepreneurs, and handhold a few of them by providing guidance to them. This is what we would like to do in entrepreneurship also. And in career guidance, for the people who are coming out from the college or the people who are there in industry who have just joined, we would like to provide guidance in resume preparation to be relevant to the job they are applying, and create a platform to let them know various positions which are available in the market, and refer them to relevant people in industry, so that they can understand and then learn the technologies and then hone their skills. And then there is also a possibility of adopting a few of them to skill them in industry relevant technology. This is what we would like to offer through career guidance forum. And to give back to the society, we would like people to volunteer for child education. Adopt few schools where go to the schools and then talk to students and make the fundamentals stronger in subjects like science and maths, which is essential today, and expose them to developments taking place in the world, to widen their horizon by talking about the new technologies which are taking place, and give inspirational talks narrating the stories of people who have made difference to this world, so that they get inspiration, and guide them in projects to compete with other corporate schools to build confidence in them, and at the same time train the teachers also. These are the 4 pillars through which we would like to achieve our mission. So I encourage all of you to get involved and then subscribe to this platform, and then gain by the initiative that is being taken by this thing. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and then I can be of any help if anyone wants to talk to me or they would like to gain something from this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Khan Saab. Thank you for your valuable time and briefing us about the industry. We'll definitely get in touch with you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Going forward. Thank you, Khan Saab.
Thank you.
Going forward, our former president and great scientist, Mr. APJ Abdul Kalam, had once said, if you are a mechanical engineer, don't feel so proud, because you can repair everything except your own heart. So we got to be proud of ourselves, being a mechanical engineer. So let us now explore the mechanical industry. Let's hear it from the expert. The speaker is Mr. Syed Parvez Abdullah. Mr. Abdullah, let me just give you his brief introduction. Mr. Abdullah completed his BE from UVC in 2015 and joined Tata Technologies. He also did his master's in automotive engineering from VIT Vellore and ARAI Pune. He currently works for Michelin tires. He is into simulation research and development. At a very young age, he has acquired immense knowledge. By the grace of Almighty, I welcome Mr. Abdullah to please present. Mr. Abdullah, over to you.
Thanks a lot for the introduction, Siraj bhai. I'm just sharing my screen. Let me know if it is visible.
Yes, it's visible.
Right. All right. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. I welcome all of you for this session today. It's mainly for the mechanical engineering professionals, basically to understand the concept of MFIRD and at the same time explore the mechanical industry on a high level. So this will be the topic of the presentation, exploring the mechanical engineering industry. The agenda, what we will be going through in the next 45 minutes or so will be this. We will be first having the introduction, and then we will be having an overview of the various domains of mechanical engineering and the corresponding skills which are required to be a part, to be working in those domains. And then we will be also looking through some of the prospects of higher studies in India, technical education, what after our bachelor's degree, what avenues do we have to pursue our higher studies. And then at the end, we will be summarizing the entire presentation and we will be open for a few question and answers. Our panel will be open for a few question and answers, inshallah. So the objective of this session, as you see on the screen, is to present a bird's eye view about the mechanical engineering field. All right, to start off, I have a few quotes from the veterans of the industry. I have two quotes basically. One indicates the origin of mechanical engineering, as even Khan Saab very rightly mentioned, that it is there in every walk of life. What you see machines all around, and machines are nothing but mechanical engineering. So it all started from time immemorial, when actually man started to think of utilizing things for his use and to make life easy. It's at the end of the day, it's to make life easy. So Henry Gant says this: a mechanical engineer is carrying forward under the direction of science, the work of a mechanic who actually first learned the art of making things, to make a fire, to make a wheel, to chip a flint. And eventually it has evolved over a lot of years. And now it is accepted universally that mechanical engineers basically move the world. On the left hand side, you see a depictive image which indicates that mechanical engineers move the world. So this is the insight into the history of mechanical engineering. Now coming to the evolution and the future of mechanical engineering, a very relevant statement in today's time indeed. Just a second. All right, I'm sorry for the interruption. You're able to see my screen again?
Yes, Mr. Abdullah.
All right. So a very relevant statement in today's time indeed. Jeff Immelt was the CEO of General Electric until 2017. He retired it to 2017. So he says, if you went to bed last night as an industrial company, you're going to wake up today as a software and an analytics company. So this is the way forward. What most of the organizations, the legacy organizations, are adopting change to keep pace with the evolving technologies. So it's a paradigm shift from the old legacy systems to the new and to embracing the new technologies. So these are a few quotes to set the tone for the presentation. All right, to practice any profession, we have to first intend that with what intention we are practicing a profession. So about that, the Holy Prophet ﷺ said, the whole creation is the family of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The whole creation is the family of Almighty God. And the most loved among all the human beings is the one who benefits his creation the most. So this should be our intention of practicing any profession we are in. So basically it is to practice the profession to serve the humanity. So this should be the profession so this should be the intention what we have to make before or while following any profession, right? All right, now this is one phenomenon what I learned when I joined Tata Technologies after my bachelor's. So during our induction session, we had our senior colleagues who were introducing us to the organization, who were welcoming us to the industry, because it was the first organization for all of us. So what one thing what struck me was one of the very senior colleagues, he told us this, that you should always remove the wow effect. Now, what is the wow effect? We see any technology, we see any concept, we see any product, we see any system, and then we are overwhelmed by that. We are flabbergasted by that. We're like, wow, it is just amazing. For example, we see smartphones having so many features. We're just flabbergasted by that. We visit a smart factory. Khan Saab talked about Industry 4.0. We visit a smart factory where robots do things for you, where everything is automated with a very less manual intervention. So we are like, wow. Now, as the people who create technology, engineers basically are the people who create technology, right? So as people who create technology, we should always remove the wow effect. Now, how is the wow effect removed? When you first get exposed to any technology, you have the wow effect, and then slowly you get behind the technology, you get behind the scene, and you actually get your hands dirty and understand how that technology is made up of, what are the building blocks which make up that technology, and then eventually you remove that wow effect, and you make peace with the technology, saying that I know the physics, I know the theory behind this technology. It's no more surprising to me. But this process of evolving from wow and to tell that I know everything, it takes quite a lot of time. It has a lot of stages. So these are some of the stages what it takes to remove the wow effect. First, to get exposed to any technology. This is the time when you have the wow effect, and then you start learning the technology. After learning, you start to implement it, and of course, when you implement, you will be making mistakes. Without making mistakes, you cannot learn any technology. Of course, we all know that. So you make the mistakes, you relearn again. You go back to the basics. You see what went wrong, how things had to be, and what we had done. You basically relearn, and this is a loop. You relearn, you implement, you relearn, you implement, you make mistakes, and then following this loop, eventually you gain an expertise wherein you confidently tell that I know the working behind the technology, and I am not surprised anymore by any technology. So this is the attitude what we should be having. So I shared this because I found this very intriguing and interesting when I came across this concept for the first time. All right. So as even Khan Saab mentioned, that there are no watertight compartments in today's landscape of technology. You cannot be a pure mechanical engineer. You cannot be a pure electrical, civil, or a software engineer. You have to be a combination of both. You have to be a combination of many technologies. It's all collaboration at the end of the day. For a useful product to come up in the industry, it takes people from all the engineering fields to come up, to brainstorm, to sit together, to come up with solutions. And it is the same within mechanical engineering also, because in the subsequent slides, we are going to see the various domains of mechanical engineering. But having said that, these domains of mechanical engineering are not watertight. It's not, for example, we've got the R&D domain. It's not like R&D domain people will not do the jobs of the other domain. Or for example, a person in business development will not do the job of R&D. So it's all collaboration, and it's all working together. Now, coming to the overview of the various domains, what we will be exploring. These are the few domains what we will be going through in this presentation under mechanical engineering. We will be going through the domain of research and development, the domain of production, testing, maintenance, the domain of MEP. MEP is mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, the domain of business development, and the domain of QMS. QMS is quality management systems. So we will be looking through the overview of these domains, what actually happens in these domains, and what it takes to be a part of these domains, what skills we need as mechanical engineers to be a part of these domains. So we start off with R&D. So the blocks with the dark brown color you see here, these are the blocks which indicate the input and output for the R&D process. And the blocks in blue basically indicate the entire workflow of the R&D process. So the input is the market research and analysis. Your sales and marketing team gets the pulse of the market. You see what what products are needed at this point in time for the people, for the market, what product actually sells. All that requirements are gathered by the market research team, the business development team, and then they give those inputs to the R&D teams. Now the R&D teams sits together, they benchmark, they brainstorm, and they do a lot of reverse engineering to see what are the similar products which already exist in the industry as of today. What are the limitations of the product? Benchmarking study is a very beautiful field wherein you actually get an overview of the entire landscape of products. You see what are the limitations of the product, what are the advantages of the already existing product, how we can incorporate the advantages, and we can mitigate the limitations in our product. And then after, it's a huge task. This benchmarking and a reverse engineering process is a huge task. Again, all these blocks you see are careers in itself, right? People spend their entire careers in R&D, that too in one specific block. So it's a huge field. So benchmarking is a very beautiful concept wherein you get the overview of the industry, and then you finally decide what should be your product. Just product is a very vague term. Product is always decided by the parameters it has. For example, I'll be developing an engine for my company. So that is a very vague sentence. And as professionals, we're not expected to tell that sentence. We should be telling, I'll be developing an engine for my company with so and so parameters, which will reduce the fuel consumption by say 7%, which will have a higher torque by say 8%. So those should be the parameters, and the cost required with that parameters will be finalized based on your benchmarking and your reverse engineering studies. And then you do the concept of vendor development. You sit together and you think what part of the product development process you will be outsourcing, what part you will be developing in-house. Typically the IP of the company, the concepts connected to the IP and the native work of the company is retained by the company, and the other things which are common. For example, in automobile, we have we have got special companies which manufacture only suspension systems. We've got special companies which manufacture only the braking systems. So those kind of systems are outsourced, and the core things which define an automobile, for example, your vehicle dynamics, your steering response to the driver, your suspension systems, and your the thing which actually define the vehicle, the engines, for example, those are written by the company. And then you have the product development. In product development, now this I have marked with or highlighted with a different color, because this is where most of us think this is what R&D is. And since most of us in this call are either students or people with up to 3 years of experience, we are mostly interested to be in this part of the R&D chain, wherein we think wherein we want to be in the product development process and see actually how it works. And then once you develop we will be looking into detail on product development in the subsequent slide as well. Then after you develop your product, you do testing and homologation of that as per the legislation, as per the regulatory requirements of a specific country. You do internal testing and homologation, and then you get it certified and tested by the external agencies as well. We have a lot of agencies. For automotive, we've got ARAI, we have got ICAT, we have got GARC, we have got VRD in Ahmednagar, a lot of these agencies. So again, this again is a career in itself. People spend 25-30 years of their career in this domain, only testing and homologation, about defining the norms and regulations and all. And then once your product is tested and homologated, it goes for the mass manufacturing. So this is basically an overview of the entire R&D chain. What we have now, we look into the building blocks of the research and development, what actually make up the domain of research and development. As you see on the screen, a lot of I have listed a few systems here, but we have a lot more to this. We have mechatronic systems, which we have the R&D of mechatronics, the interaction of mechanical and electrical systems, electronics, and then we have material science, wherein we define materials. We understand, we do research on what is the best material for the specific application. Again, we have a lot of tools and methods what we define. So by tools and methods here, I mean basically the simulation tools and methods, and also the experimental tools and methods to predict any. Now, when you define a product, you have got performances of the product. Different products have different performances based on their applications, and then you test the performances. You define the product and then you test for the performances, and to predict the performances, you basically develop tools and methods. For example, I can give you an example to correlate. We have tires, and we have a lot of performances in tires, like we have rolling resistance. We predict handling behavior. We predict the noise behavior of the tires. Now to measure these parameters, we need a tool, we need a method which actually gives us the performances of these parameters. So we define these tools and methods. So this is basically pure theoretical research. We go into the physics and the chemistry of the exact performance, and then we define tools and methods using the simulation techniques. And then we have control systems. We have thermal systems. Control systems, basically you have sensors, actuators, and the algorithm which runs the machinery. We've got thermal systems, fluid systems. We've got hoses and pipes, which actually are a part of fluid systems. We've got a subject called alternative fuels, which is a part of this, which is very much in demand now. We hear about CNG fuels, we hear about hydrogen fuels, we talk about biofuels, right? We talk about using sunflower oil as a fuel. So all of that research goes into the fluid systems and thermal systems. When you do research on alternative fuels, you basically see to it that it gives the same performance as it is got by the conventional fuels like diesel and petrol. You basically compare the parameters, like you compare the flash point of the petrol and for example, biofuel, you compare the fire point, you compare the calorific value and stuff. And then you've got electromechanical systems, we heard that there's a lot of buzz about electric vehicles these days. So what it takes to build up an electric vehicle, the research on batteries, the research on motors, the research on converters, DC to DC converters, AC to DC converters required for the smooth functioning of the electric vehicles. And then we've got the research about the charging infrastructure. So these are basically the domains, the building blocks which make up the R&D domain. Now we come to the product development process, which is common across all the building blocks. You see here, this is typically the process followed in any product development cycle. You first define the problem statement, what you actually want to define. And then you set a measurable and a quantifiable target. Again, I reiterate that measurable and quantifiable target is to finalize the parameters that I want to, for example, design a tire in which the rolling resistance is reduced by 3%. But again, you have a trade-off. If you reduce the rolling resistance, the other performances may get impacted. If you reduce RR, the noise may increase by say 8%. So all of these things you define, and then you model for those parameters. You do so this modeling is basically a 3D modeling, what we are all very familiar with. After you model, you simulate it on your softwares. For that, we are also very much familiar with the simulation softwares what we have across the market today. We try to simulate the real-time conditions. You will of course have an error when you try to simulate, because simulation is after all a software. There are a lot of advantages of simulation. It saves time, it saves your money, but it also comes at a cost of error. So based on the application, you can decide to what percentage you can afford the error to be there. So for that, you do the validation. Basically, you do the validation. Validation, we have got two techniques. You do validation with either your experimental results. You will be having experimental results. You see to it that your simulation results are in the acceptable threshold of error with the experimental results, or you do manufacturing, or you do the validation with the research papers, with the literature of the research papers. If your experimental process is very time consuming and very costly. And then you do the manufacturing simulation before the product is actually manufactured on the shop floor. You do the simulation of the entire manufacturing process planning, and what tools to use, the bill of materials you define, what tools to use, what is the quantity, the cost, and what is the process, the workstation. The product should move from A to B. It should stay in A workstation for how long, and all that you do. We've got specific tools for that. Now, if you see all this, now so this is a very native technology, right? Now, in the new concept for this is from modeling to simulation of manufacturing. We've got the concept of automation and data science being applied to all these 4 steps, right? You have you have design automation, something called KBE, knowledge based engineering. We have data driven simulation, where basically you have the data and you predict the performance of your product based on the data. You build up your artificial intelligence and machine learning models. And then the same thing for manufacturing simulation. So this is a very emerging topic, what most of the mechanical engineers should look into. I feel this is a very much unexplored field. Automation and data science for mechanical engineering is unexplored at this moment for most of the mechanical engineers, at least at the university level. And then you've got the product lifecycle management, wherein your entire life cycle of the product is tracked from right from the start to the end. So because each organization has its complex processes, you work across the world, you have technical centers which are there across the world, and you have many people working on the same product, basically to track the product and to define the workflow of the product. You have this product lifecycle management, which is again not very well known in the academic circles and at the university levels. So now let's see what are the skills required to be a part of the design and analysis or the R&D teams, right? So for each domain, so for each step of the R&D, I'll be taking you through the skills. So these are all self-explanatory. For modeling, you need CAD tools like you have CATIA, NX, you've got SolidWorks, you've got Creo, and whatnot. For simulation, you need the knowledge of physics of the system. You need analysis tools, the skill of analysis tools like you have ANSYS, you have Abacus, you have GT Power, you've got MATLAB, you've got tools like CarSim, TruckSim, you've got CarMaker, and a lot of things. And then for validation, we need experimental experience and the knack of reading research papers and getting and making sense out of research papers. So for that, for the validation, you need this. And for manufacturing simulations, we've got tools like First of all, you should be knowing the manufacturing process that is being followed in the shop floor. And then we have got tools like Delmia, FactoryCAD, which actually simulate your entire shop floor on the software. You need not go to the shop floor to see the work, but you can simulate the entire thing on the software. Now for automation and data science, you need the skills of programming, you need skills of numerical fitting, statistics, basic statistics would do. Now what automation does wonders actually, right? When you, a very relatable example I would give is, we have all used ANSYS, we've all used CAE techniques, FEA techniques. We do meshing of the techniques. Now when you do meshing, the software internally does the mesh, but what makes it do the mesh is the automation behind that, is the technology which goes into the building of those softwares, right? So so for that, you need to have the knowledge of your mechanical systems also, that what mesh is best needed for the structure, and also how to do that. And all that. You can do customization of your softwares. You can add new options to the softwares, remove options from the softwares. Again, doing all these using all these concepts of automation and data science. And for product lifecycle management, we need to have knowledge of these PLM tools. You must have heard about these PLM tools: Teamcenter, Windchill. We've got Innovia. We've got Aras PLM. Again, we have a wide variety of tools. And we need some skills of programming also to basically automate tasks on those softwares, to add new options to the softwares and all that. Now coming to the production, the overview of production, basically the making of finished product from the raw materials is called production. We need to have a deep understanding of the product. Again, it provides huge employment opportunities compared to the other domains. We need a lot of people, but again, that trend is changing now because of the advent of things like Industry 4.0, automation and stuff. And robotics and all, and of course production is the backbone of the country's economy, so you can understand how important the production is, or the manufacturing facilities are for any country's economy. Now we see a little bit about the workflow of this. This is self-explanatory. First you purchase the product, then you have a raw material storage where you store it, and then you have the assembly line, where this is the place where you actually do the production, you assemble it. You have one workstation for each of the process, one station for welding, one for drilling, one for painting and all that. And then once you package it, once you are done, you send it for the quality control. The QC team decides whether it is fit to be sold to the customer or not, and then you send it to warehouse from where it can be supplied to the different dealers and to the different customers. So this is the overview of that. Now, what are the skills required to be a part of your production? First of all, you should have the complete knowledge of the process, what actually goes into the production and how it is actually made. Production people, I always feel that production, to be an actual mechanical engineer, to get the real feel of mechanical engineer, everybody should spend at least 6 months to 1 year on the shop floor. That's when you get the real feel of mechanical engineering, how things are actually made, because it is very different from the theoretical knowledge what we have. So you should first of all know the process, and then you should have some skills of managing people also, because you'll be having technicians with you who will be working. You'll be having a lot of collaboration with different workstations, with different teams. So some managerial skills also. And then these red marked skills are one which is emerging, right? You've got things like digital manufacturing, wherein you simulate the manufacturing shop floor on your softwares. And then you've got things like smart factories. Smart factories are connected to Industry 4.0. The right hand side you see here, you need all these skills, at least some of these skills, if not all, to be a part of the smart factories and the evolution because there's a huge opportunity in India, at least in terms of Industry 4.0, because it is still not very much common, right? So it's kind of a niche field wherein we can do wonders. Lot of opportunity for jobs and also for research. You've got robotics, manufacturing simulation, you've got cyber physical systems, and a lot of other skills which are needed. Now let's come to the domain of testing. Now, what is testing? It's amazing because every product you make, it has to be tested for the quality and for the regulations of that particular country. So these are the different tests what can happen. A lot of the tests are there, but I have listed a few here. We can have NVH testing. NVH is noise, vibration, and harshness. Now, this NVH testing is a very interesting field because it's common for all the products. All mechanical products will undergo this test, whether it's a car, whether it's a washing machine, whether it's a gearbox, whether it's a motor, whether it's a battery. Every component undergoes the NVH testing, wherein we see that what levels of acceptable sound it is emitting, and if it is emitting more sound, then we understand methods of reducing the sound. And again, the same goes with vibration and harshness. You have got a lot of NVH testing type. You've got exterior testing, exterior noise testing, interior noise testing. Again, I reiterate this point again and again, that each of these fields is a career by itself, right? We've got people working in NVH labs for the last so many years, and there is no stopping here. The work doesn't become redundant. You evolve over every few days. You come up with new methods of measuring noise. You come up with new instruments of measuring noise. You come up with new methods of measuring the vibration and harshness, and similar to that. It's the same for other things also. You measure your emissions, which come out of the cars, of the automobiles. We've been hearing a lot about India adapting the BS6 norms. So one of the main difference between the BS4 and the BS6 norms is the emissions. From April 1st, 2020, India has adopted BS6 norms. So basically, the main difference is in BS6 norms, the acceptable amount of emissions is very, very, very less. So that goes in line with the philosophy of saving the environment, going green, and all that. And then you've got safety testing. Again, this is a very interesting field wherein you test for the safety of the product. You test for crash, frontal crash, rear crash. You test for the safety of your wheels. You test for the safety of your tires. Test for the safety of all your components, for your washing machine components, for your motor components, for your battery components. You basically test for that. Again, in this, India is making quite significant progress. We have got NCAP ratings recently. I think Tata Altroz was the first car to get a perfect NCAP rating of 5. So again, a lot of opportunities in this. Again, you've got electronics testing. Like we know that we have a lot of electronic systems in the vehicles today. It's no more pure mechanical systems. So for electronic systems, you need to do a lot of testing. You need to we need to do the testing of torque, whether it is being generated so much torque which is generated by the pure mechanical systems. You need to do testing of the EMI, EMC. You've got electromagnetic compatibility, electromagnetic interference, wherein your electronic systems generate a lot of rays. Now you need to understand how, like whether those rays are compatible with each other or they are interfering with each other. Again, you've got the standards for this, you've got acceptable limits for this. You need to do that. So there's a huge opportunity in this as well. Again, the same thing goes with calibration, wherein we need to test and calibrate the machines. So typically, what is the process followed in any of the testing process? First, you define the test, and then you set up the workbench, you set up the test, and then you actually test using your conditions, the predefined conditions. You can do research in this in the sense that you can have different conditions and see what actually are the results, and then you validate this with the people, with your customers, and then you finally report and you send this feedback. So testing teams are there, and in huge numbers in all the major OEMs, in all the product companies. You've got a specific team which only does the testing in their labs and stuff. Again, the skills required for this is you have to have knowledge of the tool setup, instrumentation skills, how the different instruments work, and again, knowledge of the systems. One interesting test, what I would like, two interesting tests what I would like to explain here. So this image, what you see here is the measurement of exterior noise of a vehicle. So you have got a vehicle, you've got these microphones on either side of the vehicle. So this standard is defined by ARAI. It is called, you have this BIS, Bureau of Indian Standards, that is that basically what delegates the work to ARAI, which defines the automotive standards. So all these dimensions are defined in those standards. You've got the vehicle which passes in, so this lane is around 1 kilometer, something like that, and then you drive the vehicle at a specific speed in a specific gear, and then you measure the noise levels. So this is the kind of testing, so this is the field testing what we have. We place microphones on the either sides, and then we do the testing. And again, we've got the testing for the different performances of the vehicle, like we have this gradient testing, right? You test whether your vehicle can climb up to a gradient. So this testing is actually done on a test track. It is not done on a software or anything. It is done on a test track, where we have few test tracks in India. We've got one in Ahmednagar in VRDE. So it's very interesting to see that we have got slopes of different gradients, 7 degrees, 10 degrees, and then you drive in your first gear, because that's where you generate the maximum torque, and then you test that. So this is the scope of testing, huge scope again. We've got the domain of maintenance, because engineering is just not about developing new products. It's also about taking care of the existing ones, right? So you do the installation, and you first install any system, and then you identify, and then the system keeps on running. And then if it malfunctions, you identify what went wrong in the system, and you analyze, okay, what can be the reasons for that, and then you finalize basically, like if we want to, like what should be the action plan of that fault, and then you decide whether you want to replace or repair based on the cost and time involved and all that. So again, so these things are kind of the backbone of any organization, right? If we don't have a maintenance team, then the whole organization falls. So it's basically a very interesting field again, with a lot of opportunities. Now, what are the skills required? You need to have a deep product practical understanding, in the sense you need to be street smart about your products and systems, not just theoretically and using knowledge of physics and all, but also practically what actually happens on ground. You need to have critical and regression thinking. Now, what is regression thinking is when you try to fix a problem, you also need to analyze. So it's a huge work. You also need to analyze that if I fix a problem in this way, whether this will have an impact on the other aspects of the machine or not. So this is a huge activity. What happens, it's called regression thinking. And again, you need to, so this is statistics and predictive maintenance is an upcoming field in line with Industry 4.0. We use statistics and data science to use our previous data of our machine maintenance, and then try to predict the life of the machine, and then try to predict the next maintenance cycle of the machine. Again, it's very interesting. You actually instead of being caught unalarmed about about the impending fault in the machine, you actually know that, for example, my machine will be requiring a next maintenance after say 6 months. So this is again done using tools of statistics and all. Huge opportunity again here. So these are all disruptions in the in these domains, right? Whatever red mark we see here, or even on the here on this slide, we see digital manufacturing, smart factories. We see predictive maintenance, and all these are all disruptions again in these particular domains where there's huge opportunity. Now coming to MEP. MEP is mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. So this is a little comparison about MEP and a human body. Like we cannot live without pure air and our brain and without water. Any building cannot sustain without these three things: mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. So these are so this is basically a combination of your mechanical engineering and your civil engineering. A little bit of overlap with that. Again, a very interesting field, especially for people who are interested in thermal sciences, thermodynamics, your fluid systems, your fluid mechanics, and all that. Your gas dynamics, fluid mechanics, CFD. A huge scope for people with interest in these domains to make a career in MEP. Now, what is the scope of MEP? You have got MEP everywhere. You've got, right from your street lights to your water supply to your clinics and hospitals to fire protection, and all these domains you can apply MEP. It's again an overlap with the construction industries. So what are the career fields which are there for an MEP engineer? You play a significant role as MEP engineers in combating the climate change. We hear a lot of about like having a sustainable planet, reducing the greenhouse effects, reducing the emissions from the factories and buildings and all that. You play a huge role in that. You have careers in designing the different layouts and the requirements for the buildings, in actually supervising the construction of a building and seeing to it that it is as per the design. For this, again, you need to have technical knowledge plus some managerial skills. You consider about the environment and you develop new energy saving methods for construction, for your HVAC systems, and for your buildings and for other things. Again, HVAC is a field in itself wherein we design ACs, we design coolers, all the thermal systems we design. Again, a very promising field, of course. And then we've got the core electrical technology, which actually generates electricity in the building, how it is installed, how it is maintained, and all that. Now, the career roles, what we can have in this domain of MEP is this. We have got design, wherein you can design your MEP systems, HVAC systems, electrical systems, and other systems. We can be in the team of installation. You go to the site, you install the system, see to it that it is installed correctly and working correctly. And then you've got these two activities are day-to-day activities for operation and the maintenance of these systems. Again, these are all careers in itself, right? So I'm reiterating this point again and again, so what we are seeing in this presentation is basically a very high level or a bird's eye view of the entire industry. These things have a huge depth, right? So this is about this. Now we come to we're almost finishing off, in maybe in the next 5 to 7 minutes, we should be done. Now we have this process of QMS. So every organization has a quality management systems, because quality defines an organizational relevance in the market. So the moment you have little bit deviated from the quality aspect, the quality falls a little bit also, your product goes out of market. Your product, it's very difficult to sustain in the market without the right quality. So for this, you need to ensure that you need to have a good quality management system in place to make sure that your products are of very good quality, and it is needed for an agile process. Agile processes, you need to be very proactive and in terms of decision making and stuff. So for this, you have workflow. First, you design a quality system. What kind of quality system you need? You need to build your quality system, get the necessary tools and your infrastructure to put the quality system in place, and then actually deploy it. By this, we need to have quantified team, like hire people and quantified team to deploy a quality system. And then once it is in place, we need to actually control, measure, review, and then improve, keep on improving. So it's a continuous process, right? So for this, again, the typical skills, what you will be needing is, for example, if you want to relate it to our engineering subject, we've got TQM, we've got operation research, we've got what subjects like total quality management, wherein we study about the quality of the products, the different methods, what we have to ensure quality, all that knowledge we need. Again, a deep understanding of the product, quality norms and regulations. This differs from country to country. We have got and problem solving and research skills. If you have a defect in quality, you actually need to understand what caused the defect and how we can mitigate that defect also. And then managerial skills, of course, to manage people. And then this one tool what comes up again and again is the data analysis and statistics what we have. Again, you have your data, and then you analyze the data to again predict the quality of your product in the future, to forecast your quality. It is not like once we have a quality defect only, then we will sit and understand. So it is not that, it is not the age of today. In today's age, we actually predict the quality over the next 5 years, over the next 10 years, next few years, and then you have your action plan in place. So on the right side, you see some of the institutes what are involved in the making in defining the quality standards. We've got BIS, we've got ISI, Indian Standards Institute. We have got SA International, which mainly deals with automotive and aerospace product quality. And then we've got AIS, it's called Automotive Industry Standards, wherein you actually have the quality tests what needs to be done for any automotive or aerospace, basically an automotive to come on Indian roads, to come on the roads basically. Now we are almost at the end of the presentation, last few slides. So this is the domain of business development. So whatever product you make, you do research, you do the product development method, you do the production, you do the testing and all that. But at the end of the day, you have to sell it also, right? So for selling of your products, you've got your business development domain, wherein we have got this again 4 major areas inside that. We've got sales, pre-sales. Pre-sales is basically building up your customers and seeing to it that your customer network is very strong and your dealer network is quite strong, to who are actually receptive to your products, and they make sure that they it again depends whether it's a B2C product or a B2B product, like a business to customer product or a business to business product. So basically you make your customer and your dealer network very strong. And then after sales involves customer support, wherein you actually understand your customer problems, see to it that your product is functioning smoothly, provide assistance to them in case there is any regression or any fault with your product. And then you have marketing team, which actually does a lot of work. It actually tells the entire world that we have a product like this, you can use it for your good. So so for this, you need to have good communication skills and also good technical skills. No one will hear your communication if you just go and tell your audience that we have so and so product. We need to be able to, we need to be in a position to be able to explain them technically what makes this product better, or you know how it or how it actually helps your needs. And then project management for the smooth ensuring of your project also comes into this field, into this domain. And then we have strategic business. We see companies, you know, tying up with each other. We see companies doing collaborative projects. Again, these things, the project management and strategic business, these are all these come at a later stage of the career, wherein you have a deep understanding, wherein you spend some time in your technical domain, and then you are in a position to take up these roles. Nevertheless, I have listed it as a scope of this domain, right? What skills you need to have to be able to have a business, to be able to be a good business development professional is good technical knowledge, again good excellent communication skills, and proactive behavior, wherein you need to understand the pulse of the market proactively. You need to anticipate the customer problems proactively, be in a position to address them. It should not be reactive. Reactive is when you get a problem, you react to that. Proactive is anticipating a problem and then preparing to react to the problem. So this is much needed. Right. So one more thing, what I have here is the prospects of higher studies, because a formal degree, it helps any day. Because we hear some people that formal degree, we hear some people telling that a degree doesn't help, but I'm speaking from experience and also with interaction with a lot of people. A formal degree quite helps a lot. Basically, it stands you out from the rest of the crowd. Right. So these are the opportunities what I have listed here to pursue technical education in India. I have not listed the opportunities for outside India, but you see on the screens here, you've got premier government institutes like ISC, you've got IITs, NITs. So the gateway for this exams is the GATE exam, which happens in February every year. Basically 1 year of preparation or 1.5 years of preparation should be good enough to get a decent ranking in GATE exam to get through these IIC and IIT and NITs and NIT institutes. We need to be strong in basics, your second year engineering subjects, your third year engineering subjects, your thermodynamics, your strength of materials, your material science, your mathematics, all those basic subjects, you need to be strong on an application point of view. And then if you don't get into these institutes, we've got the next league of institutes, like the premier private institutes. And this, we have a lot of institutes in India which are good, but I have listed a few here. We've got BITS Pilani, we've got VIT, we've got MIT Manipal, we've got universities like Thapar University, which is there in Punjab. So these institutes, the gateway for this is they have individual entrances. Many institutes take, many of these institutes consider GATE exam also, and they have a combination of both. For example, BITS Pilani has a criteria of GATE exam, all as well as your as their entrance exam. The advantage of having GATE score in these institutes is you will get a stipend if you are GATE qualified. The same goes with VIT. You need to have get a good rank in your exam, and then based on the courses you will have interviews also. For some courses you will have interviews, for some courses you will have direct counseling. Again, if you have GATE score, a valid GATE score, you will be getting stipend. The same goes for MIT and Thapar also. And then we've got other institutes like SRM, we've got Lovely Professional University, a lot of other institutes. And then we have state level institutes which are good. We should always aim at the best, right? So we should always aim at this category. If anyone is planning to do your higher studies, we should always aim at this category and getting through these institutes. So that should be the aim. Here I have listed down the opportunities available. We've got state level institutes. So for this, we have state entrances in Maharashtra. You've got MSET, you've got KCET over here in Karnataka, and other, you've got good state institutes also. So we can try for that. And then for working professionals, for the people who are already working and who want to continue their higher education, we've got programs for them also. ISC conducts, like ISC has a special cell called CCE, continuing college education, something like this. So in this, it basically offers fellowships under different subject. It is basically a 6-month, 1 year, or 18-month program, wherein you are taught by ISC professionals itself. The professors from ISC itself, you need to be there on campus for 2 days, Saturdays and Sundays, and then you will be having your regular tests and exams. So this is basically a skill development process wherein your professors in ISC, they will train you on specific skills, and you can choose your subjects based on your based on your professional needs, what will help you in your current domain and to progress in your current domain. BITS WILP is a very popular program among the working professionals. It's called Work Integrated Learning Program. So this is very common among the working professionals. I have seen a lot of people, a lot of my friends doing this, a lot of seniors doing this, and actually progressing using this. So again, the same thing, we have classroom, we have online classes on Saturdays and Sundays. In some places we have classroom programs also. And then you will be going through the labs and exams, and it is defined like some time you will be spending in BITS Pilani campus also. That is for the this laboratory work and for your exams and all. So we should, I think it goes a long way to have a master's degree. or for the people who already have a master's degree for a PhD degree, like how to do it can be, we have a lot of options through which we can discuss with our seniors and friends to actually decide how to do it. Right. So this will be the summary of my presentation. We started with intending right, removing the wow effect, and then we had an overview of these domains, R&D and production, testing, maintenance, MEP, business development. We saw the prospects of higher studies, and then this is very important, right? Attitude when we do anything, at least at the start of our career, it should be this: I am nothing, I know nothing. It should not be I am something and I know everything. So we should start with the right attitude, especially when we are in the initial phases of our careers. Get on to whatever we get, do the best in the domain what we are in. And of course, mechanical engineering has a wide variety of career opportunities when we come, especially in today's scenario, when we talk about collaboration with software engineering, collaboration with electronics, collaboration with civil engineering, a huge plethora of career opportunities we have in the domain of mechanical engineering. So I would like to end with a quote from a famous Urdu poet. He tells, "जो आलम ईजाद में है साहिब ईजाद, हर दौर में करता है तवाफ इसका ज़माना." So the people who create in this world of creations, we see inventions all around us, especially in this COVID scenario. We see manufacturing companies, we see automobile companies manufacturing ventilators, masks and whatnot. So the entire time revolves around those kind of people. So this should be our aim, inshallah. And then, as Henry Ford tells, coming together is beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success. So we've all come together in this webinar. We hope to keep together in future also, and then also work together. So that was it from my side. I thank you all for joining again this presentation. Jazakallah khair. And if we have any questions, our panel will be happy to address your questions. Jazakallah khair. Siraj bhai, over to you.
I must say, it's a wow effect. It's really certainly an eye opener. Very informative, very enlightening presentation. Thank you so much. So let's take some questions from the participants. I'm sure our participants will be very eager and desperate to ask questions. I request all the participants, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
I think we have some questions in the chat box already.
I have messaged you privately. Can you please go through the message, please?
Yes. I think we will.
There's a question from Mr. Zishan. How is BITS VILP?
Yeah, BITS WILP is a very popular program. It's a nice program, especially when you're working in your organizations, and many of the organizations in India have a tie-up with BITS already. But irrespective of that, you can pursue this program independently also. So typically, the programs offered under BITS WILP is engineering design, masters in engineering design, masters in thermal science, and a lot of other. I think 3 programs are offered. You can go through the website of BITS WILP. It's a nice program to, and one good thing about BITS WILP is it is considered in the industry also. We've got a lot of this correspondence type of programs, but BITS WILP is one program which is identified across the industry. But like I would personally suggest this you can do if you have if you cannot do full-time education, but if you can afford your full-time education, full-time master's degree is always helpful compared to part-time.
Thank you. I think there's another question. What are the skills required for HVAC? HVAC basically, let me answer this. HVAC is basically an air conditioning system, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. It requires you must be you can be an engineering graduate. You can also be, even if somebody is a diploma holder, he can also get into HVAC. There are again HVAC. It's up to you again. You want to get into design or you want to get into execution. So it depends what skill you are looking for. So minimum qualification is what required. Diploma minimum qualification required. And there are courses on HVAC. Yes, there are many institutes in Bangalore, and there is a huge scope. The institutes who train on designing and also execution of air conditioning system, electrical and plumbing system. There are many institutes in Bangalore also. There is a scope in India and outside India also on air conditioning system. There are many companies who offer on courses on thermal load calculations, and there are many consultants who offer these courses. Uh, there's another question: HVAC design and drafting. Can you please elaborate? I'm not able to understand HVAC design and drafting. What is the question? There's a question from brother. HVAC design and drafting. Could you please elaborate? There's another question. Suggest the institution and course for studying the testing lifting equipment vessels. Institution and course for studying the testing lifting equipment vessels.
For the testing domain, there are no courses defined generally as such, because the testing procedures for or the testing machinery is different for different companies. So the training happens within the company only. Once you get into the organization and then you're a part of the testing team, eventually over time you get trained.
Thank you. Another question. I want to know opportunity and short-term course available in oil and gas fields.
Right. You mean fields like IOCL, BPCL, and all that? Okay, I am assuming that, and I'll so for this the answer is these are all these are all come under the category of PSUs, public sector undertakings. They have two methods of recruiting people. One is they recruit through GATE. You need to have a very high score in GATE. PSUs are the first, are the people like the people who get PSUs are the first, first very few ranks in GATE exam. After that, people actually start taking up seats in IISc and IITs nowadays, because PSU gives you a good job profile and stuff. This is one way to get through GATE. And second, PSUs come to very few institutes. I remember when I was studying my final year engineering, BPCL had come to our college. It had taken 11 people. So they are still with BPCL after 6 years also. So they come to a very few institutes. So if you are one of those institutes where the PSUs come and the oil and gas industry come, then you can get through from the campus also.
There's another question from a brother. As a fresh mechanical engineer, to get job in R&D and data analysis, what is a skill I need to develop? This is the question.
Right. Wajid bhai, would you like to take this question? Wajid bhai?
I guess, Raj bhai, I'll just answer this.
Yeah, please.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So to have to develop yourself into R&D, you need to have initially innovative thinking. Like you should be able to maybe at the end of this session you will have some. If time permits, we'll show some demo, which will have an eye opener to you to understand R&D. Basic skills is like you should not stick to one mechanical domain itself. It should be, you should have like zeal to go with electromechanical as well as software related. Mixture of that is what today for R&D guys industry is expecting. So that way, like you can have hands-on experience into softwares from mechanical side, like 3D softwares, CATIA, UG, and SolidWorks. Those softwares can help you in designing. Otherwise, to have R&D expertise, you need to have analytical, like creative thinking. Creative thinking is the main thing to get into R&D. I hope that's clear for you.
Thank you. There's another question. I know the HAP software and duct sizer. Any other skills required for HVAC? Yes, that's good. HAP software is basically to design the duct system. You must also have basic, fundamentals. You must know the fundamentals of thermodynamics, which is for refrigeration and air conditioning, and also familiar with the AutoCAD software, where you can design the system, and psychometric chart. These are things you need to learn to be a HVAC designer. Hope I've answered the question. And there's another question. The Abdul Rashid from BTech 5th semester UVCE. I'm interested in taking product design and development as my career. Hence, I went through the training of CATIA V5 by CADMAX. Hopefully, we learn Hypermesh in near future. Also, I know basics of Python as a fresher. How do I get started? What is your take on placements in UVCE? May I request Mr. Abdullah to answer this?
Yes, so tool knowledge will help, of course. Like getting trained on CATIA and Hypermesh and stuff. Apart from that, if you have the knowledge of like the theory behind those tools, that would also, like, that is very important. You need to understand the physics behind the analysis. So it's a good thing what you're doing. You can apply for jobs as and when they come up. And you'll be one of the people who will be considered for that because of the skills what you have. Pertaining to UVCE, the job opportunities, I don't know for the last, to be frank, for the last 2 years, like till 3 years back, till at least till 2017, the placements were quite good for mechanical. We had a lot of core companies coming like Royal Enfield, Volvo, Tata, and PSUs like BPCL and stuff. Honestly, but for the last from 2019 onwards, I'm not in touch. You can connect offline, or you can get in touch with your placement coordinators who are there in UVCE.
Thank you. There's another question. What master's degree is good to go with to be in design and development in mechanical? May I request Mr. Abdul Wajid to answer this question?
Master's degree, you can take robotics, which is a hot market now. So robotics field will help if you are having the zeal in robotics side. Otherwise, can you repeat that question once more? Like what
Yes.
master degree?
What master degree to go with? He wants to be in design and development in mechanical. So what is a master's degree?
Yeah,
What
there are
specialization he has to?
automation and robotics degrees are available. You can opt for that.
Thank you. There's another question. So currently, I'm working as a new product development engineer in gear manufacturing industry. How is the forecast of it? Technical degree or MBA will be helpful? Is a question. I want to be a project manager and technical head in future. This is a question. Technical degree or MBA will be helpful?
It all depends on whether you want to go in technical side or you want to go in management side. If you want to become a technical architect kind of expertise, if you want, you have to go with MTech. If you want to have a managerial role kind of expectation, if you have, then you have to go for MBA.
All right. Thank you. There's one last question here. Sir, I completed BTech in 2017. 1 year I went for apprenticeship and now I'm working in the field of service machine. Sir, what should I do to get a good job in mechanical?
I think Mohit Bhai can answer this question. Mohit Bhai.
May I request Mr. Mohit Bhai to answer this?
Siraj bhai, can you repeat the question again?
I repeat. Okay. Brother, he's completed his engineering 2017. I went for apprenticeship. Now he's currently working in field of servicing the machines. So what should I do to get a good job in mechanical? Basically, he's into service.
Yeah. For him, Sirajvi, thank you for that. For him, my answer is whatever machines you are servicing, you don't think your work is just servicing. You think how they have built that machine as well, because the service engineer has to open like a lot of things, and they have to understand how it is assembled. Only then they can open that. And also the whatever the like technical work inside, sometimes it is related to electronics, sometimes it is related to only mechanical fitments. So you don't think like you are servicing the machine, and don't focus only on your work. Other than that, you try to understand how each item is built, how the parts are built, how the outer casing is built, how the inner items are being assembled. So that will give you immense knowledge of the material being used and the construction being produced and the way in which the machines are built. So that way you can slowly, if you have a zeal to go into design field, from there you can develop an analytical thinking of designing the things, and also you can find out the quality flaws. Like today you see, we use smartphone. So the smartphone which is easy to handle is what gets clicked in the markets. Same way, the machine which is easy to be assembled, easy to be run is what gets clicked in the market. So you should have a look like what all flaws are there in the machine you are servicing, and those things will be a learning for you to have a proper like. So what I mean to say is, you don't focus only on servicing of that area. Instead, you try to have a look on the construction of the machine, and try to build machine in the design, like at least the 3D model of the design. So that will have some startup for you towards the design side. I think that should be fine.
Yeah, thank you so much. Vijay, there's another question for you. Want to know the future in quality assurance, quality control section also. Brother wants to know the future in quality QA and QC.
Quality assurance itself is a vast field. So every domain has got different quality techniques to be used. So today we have for quality, we have a very narrow thinking, like it is just measuring instrument is what we are going to use. But quality itself is a vast field. Any sheet metal component comes, it will be quality check of that will be in a different form. Any plastic component is came from or from molding or from any other machining. Every machining aspect will have different quality techniques to check the quality of the particular component. When you are checking the quality of entire assembly, there actually you will have to understand how the machine is completely running of the machine, and should have like what way if it is assembled, it will improve the quality of the machine. And here actually I work in an organization where we have electromechanical domain. So here we have to think of even the electrical connections which are coming to run the machine, as well as how we are keeping the PCBs assembled, whether any short will happen, all those things. It is actually in itself is a vast field. You have to focus on multiple areas of QA QC, not to one or two areas. That's what I suggest.
Thank you so much. As we're running short of time, there's one last question. This will be the last question, brothers. So what are the skills required to go with MEP services? Yes, this will be the last question. Here, I would say there are three phases. Let me answer this question. There are three phases of construction. One is pre-construction, construction, and post-construction. So all the MEP services who are into MEP, so they have to start from the planning phase. Planning phase, you involve in the planning of all the system scheduling, and then you involve in the execution construction part, that is wherein you have to coordinate with all the agencies, and then you have to coordinate with the consultant and the designers. One must have basic fundamental knowledge about mechanical system, exhaust system, air conditioning system, and also electrical system, electrical panels, transformer installation, electrical panels, transformers, and plumbing system, water treatment plants, sewage treatment plants, and stormwater system. All this comes under MEP division. So you have to be involved in the planning phase, construction phase, commissioning stage, and then you hand over to client. So these are the basic skills one must have to get into MEP. So at least a minimum of 3 years I would recommend for anybody to work as a site engineer, so that they can involve in all the fields, all verticals, and get familiarized with all the subjects. I hope the question is answered. I have obtained, this is one last question. Let's take this one. I have obtained Six Sigma yellow belt. Is it advisable to go ahead and obtain black belt? Since the fees is quite high, I'm confused whether to proceed or not. Wajid bhai?
Perhaps Khan Saab or Wajid Bhai can take this question.
Yes, regarding Six Sigma, I don't have much of experience, but anyway, earlier it was like people used to do yellow belt, green belt as well as black belt. So currently, I heard from somebody like now it is more of agile people are going towards rather than Six Sigma. But again, I cannot exactly answer this question, saying like, because black belt itself has
point.
it has
I would like to take this question.
yeah.
Actually, first of all, you have to decide which domain you are selecting for your career and where what is the roadmap for the career you are planning to, and then you think that whether this black belt is required or not required. But my suggestion, if I understood properly, that yes, it is an expensive course, and if you're not in a position to spend that much, you can still get this certification later stage as well. So better to decide your career first and then spend money would be more appropriate. I hope I answer your question.
Yes, thank you so much, Mohit bhai. I think it's time to conclude the session now. May I request Wajid bhai to please present the 3D system.
Yes, I'm just sharing my screen.
Yes, please.
We have to make him the host, Siraj bhai.
Siraj bhai, I think you are making host.
Yeah.
It is not allowing me to share. Yes. What's going on? Am I host now?
No, not yet. Saif bhai, if you can make Syed Pasha as the host. Okay, I think there's some.
Abdullah bhai, you can also do it because you're also a co-host.
Yeah, what do I need to present?
No, you can just make Wajid bhai as a host. Just click on his name and then you can make him a host.
No, it's not allowing me to.
Okay, so only the Abrar bhai can do this.
Yeah, only the host. I'm the co-host. Only the
Correct.
host can do.
Okay, what are we presenting here then?
I think I thought of having some demo. I had some 3D printed filament.
Okay,
And,
okay.
anyway, if it is not happening, no problem.
Sir, we are not able to make you host, Vajinder.
Yeah, only Abrar Bhai can do this because
Yes.
he's a host. Actually, you all are co-host.
Yeah, no
Right.
problem then. I think with this.
I think we can proceed with the feedback form explanation. Mohit bhai?
Yes,
Mohit bhai, over to you.
thank you, Siraj Bhai and Abdullah. Guys, I hope the session was good and quite eye-opener session, and hope you understood the mechanical industry briefly, because the mechanical industry itself, it's a big ocean, and we just touched very few domains and the industry part, but we assume that you might have understood the mechanical industry part to little bit, and you can make your career or plan your career accordingly, because many times we targeted the audience, especially from the fresher who are yet to complete their final year, or maybe the people who are recently entered to the professional life, maybe with 0 to 3 years of experience. And if they are still not clear in which domain, which industry they're supposed to make their career, or they are still confused, I think this session was the eye opener for them to understand the field and make the career plan accordingly. So we are already running short of time. Soon we are going to share the link for the feedback form, because the continuous improvement is the key of success, and we also would like to improve ourselves in terms of understanding the requirement and the demand, so that the next session can be more appropriate to your demand and the requirement. So you will get the link the same way you got the link to join the webinar. So we would request everyone to please fill that form. You can also confirm us whether you need any particular subject to be addressed, any particular topic to be talked about. You can give us the suggestion. We will work on that part, and maybe we will get back to you. We are also offering kind of mentoring. If you would like to get some consultants, or not a consultant, like coaching, or maybe some kinds of guidance. So we asked you whether you need a mentoring part. If you say yes, then definitely you will be assigned to one of the mentor who can guide you and help you in terms of your queries and doubts. Maybe it is related to your upskilling or further education. So my request is to please everyone to please fill that form and complete it the same. You will get it the same way you got this link to join the webinar. So that's it from my side. Over to Siraj bhai.
Thank you so much, Mohit bhai. So now it's time to conclude. Okay, we are almost on the verge of completion. I thank you everyone for joining. So it was indeed a very, very educative session, very informative and enlightening session. It was certainly an eye-opener to all of us. So we are grateful to all of you for participating. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I thank you, Mr. Shahnawaz Khan Saab, Mr. Abdullah, and the entire MFID core team for taking time to organize this event. Thank you very much. They all have put in their efforts to make this event successful. I thank you once again. Thank you very much. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah.